Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayana Namaskritya
Shiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Tato Jayati Dhiraye
Tato Jayati Dhiraye.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, Text 35. 1:15:35. And repeat if you wish. Yata Matsyadi Rupani
Yata Matsyadi Rupani
Date Jaya Yatanata
Date Jaya Yatanata
Varaksha Pitu Yena
Guvara Shapito Yena
Autacha Kalevaram
Yautacha Kalevaram
Yata Matsyadi Rupani
Yata Matsyadi Rupani
Yate Jaya Yatanata
Date Jaya Yatanata
Varaksha Pitu Yena
Guvara Shapito Yena
Tacha Kalevaram
Yautacha Kalevaram
Yata Matsyadi Rupani
Yata Masyali Rupani
Date Jaya Yatanata
Date Jaya Yatanata
Varaksha Pitu Yena
Guvara Shapito Yena
Tacha Kalevaram
Yahotacha Kalevaram
One change.
Yatha Masyali Rupani Yatha Masyali Rupani Date Jaya Yatanata Date Jaya Yatanata Guvara Shapito Yena Guvara Shapito Yena Yahotacha Kalevaram Yahotacha Kalevaram
Yatha
Yatha
as much as
Matyali
Matyadi incarnation as a fish,
Incarnation of the fish,
etc.
etc.
Rupani
Rupani
forms
forms
that
they
eternally exists.
eternally accepts
Jaya
Chaturya
apparently relinquishes.
apparently relinquishes
Yatha
Yatha
exactly like
exactly like
Taha
Nata
magician,
magician
Bhara
Bhuvaraha
burden of the world,
burden of the world
Shapita
Shapitaha relieved
Yena
Yena by which Jaha let go that
Cha
also Kalevaram body
translation to wisdom and graces about
Jara
Supreme Lord relinquished the body which he manifested to diminish the burden of the earth. Just like a magician, he relinquishes one body to accept different ones, like the fish incarnation and others. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is neither impersonal nor formless, but his body is non-different from him, and therefore he is known as the embodiment of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. In the Brihad Vaishnava Tantra, it is clearly mentioned pardon, that anyone who considers the form of Lord Krishna to be made of material energy must be ostracized by all means. And if by chance the face of such an infidel is seen, one must clothe himself by jumping in the river with his clothing. The Lord is described as Amrita, deathless, because he has no material body. Under the circumstances, the Lord's dying or quitting his body is like the jugglery of a magician. The magician shows by his tricks that he is cut to pieces, burnt to ashes, or made unconscious by hypnotic influences. But all are false shows only. Actually, the magician himself is neither burnt to ashes nor cut to pieces, nor is he dead or unconscious at any stage of his magic or demonstration. Similarly, the Lord has his eternal forms of unlimited variety, of which the fish incarnation, as was exhibited within this universe, is also one. Because there are innumerable universes, somewhere or other, the fish incarnation must be manifesting his pastimes without cessation. In this verse, the particular word date, eternally accepted, and not the word ditva, accepted for the occasion, is used. The idea is that the Lord does not create the fish incarnation. He eternally has such a form, and the appearance and disappearance of such an incarnation serves particular purposes. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.24-25, the Lord says, the impersonalists think that I have no form, that I am formless, but that at present I have accepted a form to serve a purpose, and now I am manifested. But such speculators are factually without sharp intelligence. Though they may be good scholars in the Vedic literatures, they are practically ignorant of my inconceivable energies and my eternal forms of personality. The reason is that I reserved the power of not being exposed to the non-devotees by my mystic curtain. The less intelligent fools are therefore unaware of my eternal form, which is never to be vanquished and is unlimited. In the Padma Purana, it is said that those who are envious and always angry at the Lord are unfit to know the actual and eternal form of the Lord. In the Bhagavatam, also, it is said that the Lord appeared like a thunderbolt to those who were wrestlers. Shishupal, at the time of being killed by the Lord, could not see him as Krishna, being dazzled by the glare from Jyoti. Therefore, the temporary manifestation of the Lord as a thunderbolt to the wrestlers appointed like Kamsa, or declaring an appearance of the Lord before Shishupal, was relinquished by the Lord. But the Lord as a magician is eternally existent and is never vanquished in any circumstance. Such forms are temporarily shown to the asuras only. And when such exhibitions are withdrawn, the asuras think that the Lord is no more existent, just as the foolish audience thinks the magician to be burnt to ashes and cut to pieces. The conclusion is that the Lord has no material body, and therefore he is never to be killed or changed by his transcendental body.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Bhagavan Prasad Nirshishna Srimavadi Vasati Satari Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Vedanta Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Since it's great to see you all. Thank you for joining also online. Jai Shri Prabhu. Sheldon Waters spared himself. Keep peace and comfort for your mind and goodwill, proper mood, purification. It was really nice because Prabhupada did a lecture on this. So much nectar is there, so many references that however I'll try and work together to extract the essence of all the references that Prabhupada Prabhupada is given. Right away, he starts off with quoting Srimad Bhagavatam Samhita 539. He focuses specifically on Adi Purusham as the original person, the original enjoyer, and that which gives pleasure to our senses. In this material world, generally everyone is motivated by some reward, specifically to the senses. Our spirituality 101 dictates that we also have spiritual senses, and that is categorically different. It's a tattva, or demonstrated or that. What is it? That spiritual soul has senses also, and those can only be satisfied or gratified by spiritual activity. Being part and parcel, Mama Evam Shaji, the loca of the Lord, our pleasure is in his senses, actually. And this is the spiritual technique of offering service to the Lord for his satisfaction. In essence, some of our teachers, especially Maharaj, say actually in his home is Gopal Krishna. So Maharaj says that material world means unlimited desires. Spirituality or spiritual world means simply engage our senses for the satisfaction of Krishna. If we make it real basic. And if one does that, then they get this Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachit Anandavida Anavidadi Govinda Sarya Karana Karanas. This is a loaded verse actually, each meter there. And it addresses the original person, the controlling aspect of Ishwara's Parama, Krishna and his name, Sachit Anandavida, his qualities, basic qualities, Vigraha, his form, also has a form, not formless. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Anavid Adi Govinda. Again, he's the original person. You know, you've got Govinda, Sarva Karana Karana, and he's the cause of all causes. Now, here, one translation of Ananda is felicity. This word felicity. Some etymology here. Felicitatum, tatum, happiness, fertility, fortunate, fruitful. And this is coming from Latin, of course. In Spanish also it's there. Feliz Navidad, happy Christmas or Merry Christmas. Feliz cumpleaños, happy turning of years, age means happy birthday. This felicidad is also synonymous with Ananda or bliss when addressing Krishna's character. Here, immediately, Srila Prabhupada directs us then to 1861 of Bhagavad Gita, which I'll highlight a few things here. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hirdeshya Vinatishtati Brahmayam Sarva Vetanam Ratnabhinam. Srila Prabhupada brought up this reference because the purport it states that we're not the supreme known, and therefore we're not the supreme controller. Krishna is known as Trikala Gya, Gya knower, Kala time, three, the number three. And that's part of the difference, that he is not forced when he comes to the material world. He, by his own sweet will, he comes to, this is further elaborated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-34, that he takes various incarnations for the pleasure of his devotees in essence. Here, we, means the conditioned souls, we work under the spell of the particular body that we're given. 331-1. Karmanandi Vinay Trena. That's by divine supervision, as a result of one's previous activities, karmana, one gets a particular bodily situation. And under that particular bodily situation comes certain proclivities. Everyone has different proclivities. You can broadly categorize them as material and spiritual. Later I'll go into it, and together we will, about the different types of devotional service. In third canto, Srila Prabhupada mentions this in a purport but there are actually 81 types of devotion. So it's under the material modes. And we'll briefly get to that later. Here in the purport also, Srila Prabhupada alludes to his Antaryamis, the super soul incarnation of the Lord. And this is partly how he knows, because he's situated in everyone's body. And then also Brahma Samhita further substantiates this by saying that he enters into each atom also. Yesterday, Srimad Bhagavatam class by His Grace, Raja Rajbalan Guru, he went into this quite extensively. The categories and how Vedic philosophy looks at material nature, not as a physical substance, as a material energy. Energy acts differently than something material. And in this regard, Srila Prabhupada will give two examples, how some people think that that material nature is responsible for life. That was the essence of Prabhu's lecture yesterday. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of the scorpion lays the eggs in the grain, and that then the little baby scorpion comes out with his stinger ready, envious and ready to sting and bite and all that. And that the foolish person thinks, oh, this lump of rice is the cause of the scorpion. That the mother is the cause of the scorpion, is simply put the egg there. His Holiness Swami Bhagavan Krishna Maharaj gave another example of, for example, perhaps someone walks through that door, a person, and then a foolish person thinks, oh, the person was born of the door. No, they simply came from somewhere else and walked through the door. That someone who does not have the proper vision sees as the cause being the door. Similarly, the soul, as is purported on also the soul and Karma David, the purport there, Srila Prabhupada mentions that this individual soul actually takes shelter in the sperm of a male, and that sperm is injected to the ovum of the female, and then it takes shelter there. And there only the body develops, and that is what gives life to the material body. Because sometimes in Srila Prabhupada said, and sometimes people think, oh, simply by intercourse, there's life. But so many people have an intercourse, so many people discharging, and not everything results in a birth. Well, why is that? It's because the soul, like I said, there's no soul there. Or even sometimes there is an unborn fetus and then it's dead in the womb. And why? All the ingredients are there, yet still no life. This is a easy way to understand that life is not coming from matter, but coming from something categorically different. And Srila Prabhupada would often say, call it what you want. One must agree that there's something inside this human body, and on account of that, something inside the human body, it's existing. Even if you don't want to call it soul or spirit, something is existing, and because of that something, the body is animate. We'll call that the Atman or the Jiva. Now, His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu also kind of made a little joke about this, how some people think matter is responsible for giving life. And suppose there are two tables. You ever seen two tables come together and then all of a sudden a little baby table comes out? No, it's clear that matter itself cannot produce another life. As Srila Prabhupada has titled, life comes from life. Even there's one doctor in Canada, Maharaj said, and that he was for over 30 years just watching people die. And he said, I am convinced thoroughly that there must be something else that's not the body that's dwelling inside of it, because immediately after the bodily effulgence, that continence goes away. Right? It becomes pale, and it relieves itself of all the fluids and so forth, and rigor mortis becomes very stiff. It's account of a lack of soul. Utkrama, it takes a step out of the body. This is basic. However, Srila Prabhupada has directed us toward it, therefore I'm mentioning. Now, Srila Prabhupada goes on to state, which we'll here briefly go over, how one gets a particular body by karanam gunasangasya. So due to karmanam gunasangasya, due to one's actions, one comes into a certain association with the mode, and on account of that mode, one gets a particular body. Now, he gave the Srila Prabhupada the example of a boil. A boil means a growth, an abscess on the body. Yeah. And if one gets a boil, and then another word for this one is called carbuncle. It's a medical term. Condom means a cluster of boils. Boil is a growth, it has generally some pus or some liquid in it. If one gets a boil on their body, it's on account of their association with something contaminated. And therefore, some chikitsa, some remedial measure is required to heal. Now, the remedial measure in medical terms is there's an incision and then it's drained. And then eventually it becomes normal, the area of the body, the skin. And similarly, to counteract one's material boils, this is Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2:15, which I'll simply read. With sword in hand, intelligent men cut Chidanti, just like a surgeon cuts Chidanti through the binding knots of reactionary work karma by remembering Anuvyasena, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? Who does the remembering? The Kovidas, the intelligent people, simply by remembrance. Because the Lord's omnipotent simply by remembrance, which is the subtle faculty of the mind, one starts to reduce by grace his or her karmic reactions. Now, in the purport, here Srila Prabhupada states regarding Krishna's activities, they are all attractive spiritual activities, and therefore constant association, nityada, with spiritual activities of the Supreme Lord gradually spiritualizes the conditioned soul and ultimately severs the knot of material bondage. Sometimes there's reference to a labyrinth of the material world. Labyrinth is much like a maze. I looked into it a little bit. It's quite interesting. There's this concept of being in a labyrinth, and I'll simply read how there's a technique supposedly to get out of it. Maybe some of you have tried it. Here, to escape a labyrinth, which is essentially a maze, the most common method is to keep one hand consistently on a wall as you move through the pathways and following that wall until you reach the exit. The technique is often called wall following and will eventually lead you out, even if the route is long and winding. Anyone ever tried this? Wall following? This is similar to taking shelter of Krishna Ashraya because he's constant. He's eternal and he's all-knowing, and it says that Bhakta Vatsala, he's predisposed favorably to his devotees, and therefore he's always has the goodwill, samam bonam. He's constantly thinking of how to give opportunities with due respect to one's individual free will of how to come out of his labyrinth. This wall following is actually synonymous with here in this verse of 1:15 of Anuvyasena, simply remembering Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada would sometimes say this, right now I'm remembering Krishna, how else can I speak about him? To speak about something, one must remember it. So simply right now, and Srila Prabhupada mentioned it before, Remembering, listening, or reading record is itself its righteous activity, he calls it. Simply doing that act. A very simple way to engage in devotional service. Now, we'll go into briefly the different types of devotional service, 81 in number, which is, we were trying to figure out where these came from, how exactly this formula was made. In the third canto, 29th chapter, 10th chapter, 29th chapter, 10th verse, Srila Prabhupada states that 3 modes times 9 limbs of devotional service times 3 again equals 81. We're trying to figure it out. Anyone we asked Maharaj, I'll give you the answer. And anyone know where those 3, 3, and 9 come from? At least where they think. Okay, 81.
So first 3 modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, and then their light activities of devotional service, hearing, chanting, remembering, etc. And then they're again mixed with these 3 modes, each of them 27 times. So goodness can mix with passion, goodness can mix with ignorance, goodness can mix with goodness.
Yeah.
So that's like 81.
Yeah. So we were trying to figure it out exactly how, and so his Grace Chief Panicharanta Prabhu also elaborates on there. How they mix goodness, passion, goodness, within each activity or and that's how there's 81 Srila Prabhupada gives that. Now, this is further substantiated in 17:4 of Bhagavad Gita. We'll just try to abstract the essence. Yajante satvika devan yaksha raksham ramsi prajasaha pretam bhuta ganamschami yajante tamasajanam. 17:4 Bhagavad Gita. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. 2 things in the purport. Supreme Personality of Godhead describes different kinds of worshippers according to their external activities. According to scriptural injunction, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable, positive. But those who are not very conversant with or faithful to the scriptural injunctions worship different objects according to their specific situations in the modes of material nature. Just pause here. There was one gentleman yesterday in Santa Cruz who came. He's captivated by he was captivated by the mantra, and he came up to the table book distribution, and we started talking briefly. I asked him, of course, if he was interested in seeing the books. He said, "No, I'm already awoken." I was caught off guard. He said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Not the books." He said, I don't need the books." I said, "Well, how did you do that?" I asked him, and he said, "Oh," he pointed to the Hare. But he only sometimes practices Hare Krishna mantra and listens to it. He said, freestyle rap. And through this, he has become awakened. This is an example of how, if one disregards the scriptures, one becomes misguided. And I shared this briefly, and I'll read it word for word because this was found in Shantipur. It's a beautiful saying that was photographed there. Here it states, disregard utopia that does not concur with the scriptures or the character of the saintly. But I'm bringing this example because the gentleman yesterday knows scriptures and not following anything. He briefly went on to say, who is living right now that knows everything? Said Krishna. And he said, Krishna knows everything? So where is he? He's everywhere, actually. And it was living right now in physical form. So who knows everything? So, well, our philosophy states that one doesn't need to know everything, actually. Only that which is relevant is needed to know. And he went on to say that, in essence, that that's the main purpose. That, in essence, that he doesn't need the scripture. That's what he said. So, anyway, the point is here that those who are under the modes, he had no idea of the modes either. It was new to him, that they're misguided and they concoct their own philosophies. That's what happens. No scripture, no following of the saintly sadhus, then they become moha, they become illusion, they're bewildered. So now, let's move on. Srila Prabhupada, in the text, he highlights adukachati, they become actually degraded, they go down. So, I want to read one more verse here and then we'll summarize and conclude. Highlighting 331.1 of Karmana Vivanentrina, the Srimad Bhagavatam. After suffering different kinds of hellish conditions, a man comes again to the human form of body. The same topic is continued in this chapter. In order to give a particular type of human form to a person who has already suffered hellish life, the soul is transferred to the semen of a man who is just suitable to become his father. And what I mentioned earlier already, specifically, Prabhupada highlights that it's in regard to Amdata Israel, that specific hellish plane, where one goes and it gets dogs and hogs bodied, and then eventually comes back. Srila Prabhupada continues, everything is done by the supervision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Material nature supplies the body, but it does so under the direction of the Super Soul. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita that a living entity is wandering in this material world on a chariot made by material nature. The Supreme Lord, as Super Soul, is always present in the individual soul. He directs material nature to supply a particular type of body to the individual soul according to the result of his work. And the material nature supplies him. So in the last video, one more reference. Here, one word, Rita Kanashraya, is very significant because it indicates that it is not the semen of the man that creates life within the womb of a woman. Rather, the living entity takes shelter, and the rest I already mentioned. Now, in this regard, this is how one can feel and notice and use the intelligence of the super soul of Antaryama. This is found, for the record, Srimad Bhagavatam 2:235. And I'll highlight just a few things. It's titled The Lord in the Heart. It's quite a lengthy purport. So, the general argument of the common man is that since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can one either surrender to him or render transcendental love and service to him? That was one of the arguments of the gentleman. Where is he physically, that man that knows everything? To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Sri Sukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Summarize a few things. Not perceivable by material senses. One must have a practical service attitude, and then by revelation, one gets towards mercy. Then one can perceive the presence always in everyone. Here it is. He can perceive that intelligence is the form direction of the Paramatma portion of the personality of Godhead. So he's giving them direction. Srila Prabhupada was once asked, how do you know? How do we know that it's actually Krishna that's communicating to you? And Prabhupada responded, Krishna says, do like this. Do like this. This Chetodarpana Marjanam is a must for one who wants to become more sensitive to the Supreme's direction. The presence of Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for the common man. The procedure is as follows. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. He may not feel it abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that the hand, the leg, the head, the hair and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels. But as such, the hand, the leg, the head, etc., cannot be identified with his self. Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate himself from other things that he sees. The natural conclusion is that the living being is not either man or beast, is the seer, and he sees besides himself all other things. He goes on to mention a little use of the intelligence. We can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or to move independently. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depend on various forms of energy supplied to us by nature in various combinations. Again, the difference between modern scientific outlook on material world, something physical, tangible, as to energy, as given in yesterday's lecture. He goes on to state the different subtle types of senses, Srila Prabhupada. And he states here, it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by natural energy. Here, we conclude that he who sees is spirit, and that the senses as well as the objects of perception are material. The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence. That is the difference between spirit and matter. There are a few other things mentioned, extremely to the point, sharp intelligence in that purport. But just for the sake of time, we went over briefly the superior position of Krishna, how we're not this ultimate knower, we're dependent. And then how one gets a particular type of bodily situation and proclivities based on the association of the modes of material nature. The parallel, the modes of material nature in devotional service are 81 in number. One can hear in the mode of goodness, ignorance, goodness, passion, goodness, goodness. And then how one can perceive Krishna's presence through proper use of intelligence by first understanding one's spiritual nature, and then also take help from this intelligence. These are three basic subjects that we covered broadly. At this point, it will open up for any question, answer, reflection, friendly challenge, corrections, etc. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna,
Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jesh Prabhu is on the line. Yes,
Hare
please.
Krishna Prabhu, thank you for wonderful class. I just had a few doubts. A couple of them. One is, would you say the holy name of Krishna is formless? Because it said that Krishna is his holy name. But there's no form. At least I mean, as maybe I'm seeing my perspective is wrong.
Did you find that somewhere?
No, I just because it said that Krishna, like all his potencies himself is in the holy name. Is that correct? Or maybe that part I don't.
It's mentioned and by Srila Prabhupada also. That it's a state of advancement that there's one, what was it, forced meditation, the chanting of the holy names, that because the potencies are all invested there, that as one advances more, their consciousness, gradually it's revealed through the holy name. All information, name, form, activities, pastimes, etc. When one chants the holy names without offense.
So it's is it incorrect to think that Krishna is the holy name?
It's stated that no, it's not. It's stated that because he's absolute,
Mm-hmm.
everything, including his name, is non-different from him. However, in general, in a conditioned state of existence, one cannot perceive that.
Okay. And my second question is, I noticed that at times, like for example, Shivananda Sain, I think he there was a dog that was associating with him, and then that dog also got liberated. Why is that the case? Since there's no purification process involved, right? Because the entity is a dog. They don't go through because I thought being able to be qualified to do devotional service and eventually even enter the spiritual world requires a change of consciousness in terms of purifying your mind, the body, detaching yourself, then getting attached to devotional service and so forth, like the process that we're doing. But it seems like sometimes other living entities, they just take a shortcut, and it's just like by just associating with a sadhu that they immediately get to go back to Godhead. Why is that the case? Like they're not really going through any process of purification at all. Yeah.
I don't know enough to speak about that. However, mentioning to give you a clear answer, and anyone can respond if you have some more information. There's a lot of history behind certain living entities that we don't know about.
Hmm.
And for example, how can the trees, they're twin trees, they get liberated, they didn't go through a certain process either. So sometimes there's curses that happen,
Yeah.
and then we don't know this. We only see, again, I see someone walk through the door and I think the door is born of them. What is all that history before that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's possible there's some previous karma that we don't know about, that a certain entity has gone through and they got a particular body, and Krishna uses those certain, he creates those conditions for that entity. And that's really as much as I can say in regards to that. If anyone else wants to share something, feel free. Response to this question.
I have read in. Are you able to hear me, Jeshlu?
Yes, Prabhu.
I have read in Nectar of Devotion that there are two ways or three ways by which one can attain perfection. So one is sadhana by performing the devotional service.
Mm-hmm.
Another is kripa. Kripa means mercy. Kripa means mercy. It is causeless. If we see many disciples, even all of us, if we think we had a lot of bad habits and now we are performing devotional service, so we have received mercy. So there could be those examples like a dog receiving extreme mercy. For example, he is getting to eat coconut from the hands of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Mm-hmm.
is receiving personal association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can make tigers and elephants dance, and tigers and deer kiss each other and cry in ecstasy, he can also liberate a dog because he has that prerogative as a supreme personality of Godhead.
Mhm.
Kripa. So this is called one who is receiving perfection by Kripa.
Mhm.
So it gives us an understanding that how Krishna is independent. He can do anything. He can liberate a person even if he is not qualified. If so, that was because the dog was following Shivanand Sen. Shivanand Sen wanted to give him mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if we become a dog of a Vaishnava, then we will also get the same mercy. Yeah. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that even a dog in the house of Srivas Thakur is dear to me.
Mhm.
So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that I want to take birth as a dog in the house of a Vaishnava so that I can take remnants of their prasad. So yeah, by Kripa one can get liberated.
Mhm.
It's causeless mercy.
Mhm.
When it comes to Kripa, don't you need to, as an individual, have the consciousness to be able to serve Krishna and love Krishna? Because that's really the lack, right? That makes us want to that makes us forces us to be in the material world, is that we don't want to serve Krishna, we don't love Krishna. We want to serve ourselves. But how can it be that, a person doesn't go through a process in order to show that?
Yeah, that is a nice
The
question.
free will of the soul has to be the free, like, because we have that, as far as I remember, we have that free will to decide whether to serve or not, and we need to show that we can serve at the bottom of our heart Krishna, and that's our priority. But it seems like you can just take a shortcut, and by, like, sometimes, like, Krishna would just, without even having to go through that process, you just go straight to the spiritual world. That's where I'm going to confused. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. But I guess, as you said, I guess the dog was technically associating with the sadhu, taking remnants of. I'm not sure. Maybe they're conscious. Maybe that caused. Maybe in the spiritual that soul became a dog. I don't. And maybe I don't know. That's. I guess that's something I have to read about more. But yeah, not really.
So I'll tell you so many things, but they all are same. First of all, understanding law of karma is very, very difficult. It is beyond our imagination. So we think that, so in material world, there's a proverb, life is unfair. Actually, life is fair. But if you look at 99% of the people say life is unfair because we are only looking at this lifetime. That, hey, and there's so many devotees also, they ask questions to, senior Vaishnavas, Maharaj, we are doing bhakti and everything, but we are only suffering. But people who are not doing bhakti, they are enjoying life. That's what we see from a material point of view, right? So, and we also know that, in every lifetime, whatever the spiritual progress we made, they they don't get, dissolved or something. That helps us to, move closer to Krishna, right? So you are saying that, like, I mean, there are so many examples. Think of, when Krishna first killed, Putana. Putana is also liberated. You can ask the same question. How come Putana is trying to kill the god and she is getting liberated? How come is it possible? Because they are kind of, associates of the god, that is one part. And the second thing is, we don't know, what kind of spiritual progress we made in millions of lifetimes. We think that, a dog, tree, or anybody is there. But, but they are kind of, what to say, like, we feel that, they are not doing, what we are doing right now. We are only looking at in our limited scope.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so basically, yeah, to summarize, basically, life is, millions of lifetime is a very long period of time. We're only looking at, one lifetime. We don't know what they have done, what is the progress they have made. So, yeah, so we cannot basically comment, we just need to So basically life is fair because, we see that, sometimes I used to also question myself. I'm doing like 5 times of, what other people are doing. They are getting promoted, I'm not. Then, then I tried to learn a little bit of astrology, numerology and all. So then I was able to connect the dots. Like, for the example, in my date of birth, there are like 8 is there. So if there is some number, there is a certain number of 8s are there, that means everything will get delayed. Like promotions, everything in life will get delayed. But that is helping also. Like sometimes, I see that, I did not get fired because, I didn't get promoted. So, so yeah, so basically, we can only look at, we only have, very narrow vision in this lifetime. So we cannot look at, everything.
I guess like I'll give an example. Let's say that so does Krishna have the would he have the I don't want to say a bit power, but if he wanted to make all of us immediately qualified to go to the spiritual world, would he do that? Does he have the ability to do that?
Yeah, he wants us to, go back, right?
But that's dependent on our purity, right?
Yeah. So, purity.
Isn't that what's restricting us from going to the spiritual world is our or at least for me is my consciousness where it is. It's I'm not fully, surrendered to the Lord and have that natural inclination for that. Rather, I'm still kind of addicted to following my senses. That's the reason why that's what's barring me, right?
Uh, so Jeshpro, your question, Jeshpro, can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu, I can hear you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, your question assumes that your endeavor is the source of your the speed at which you will achieve liberation. But in the practice of bhakti, there is always combined with our endeavor the causeless mercy of Krishna. And we have no control over Krishna's causeless mercy. To say that, oh, if I put in 80% of the work, Krishna will do the remaining 20% is trying to make bhakti very mechanical. Bhakti is not a process, bhakti is love. So in the case of this pastime of the dog, one cannot fully attribute what this living entity did in their previous lifetimes. Also, one cannot say that he had purified himself and hence he had received this opportunity. The idea, the key idea to understand is mercy is causeless. And someone might have done just 1% of effort, but they may have interacted with a pure devotee of the Lord, and the causeless mercy from their association might liberate them. Someone might have done, 99% of the effort themselves and received 1% mercy, and might have achieved liberation. We don't try to compare these two individuals because mercy is meant to be causeless. In the end, your relationship with Krishna is different from any other living entity's relationship with Krishna. Do not treat it like, oh, my endeavor determines when I will get liberated. That is the beauty of bhakti. Causeless mercy can come to you at any time. In fact, to think that our endeavor is the cause of our liberation will be a very frustrating effort because that's what materialists also do. They put in effort at their work and they expect a result that, may or may not fructify. We must understand that all we're trying to do in bhakti is to put in our best effort, and based on our sincerity and the amount of effort we are putting in, regardless of how dirty our heart is, Krishna will one day through his pure devotees give causeless mercy, and the complete sinner can achieve the highest.
So, one question is, does this mercy interfere with free will? Because if Krishna's, gives that causeless mercy to like impose love of Godhead immediately, doesn't that, because isn't that something that we need to develop? To love someone, we have to voluntarily love them, right? It can't be given to us. Or maybe is that correct on how to see love? Maybe that's where I guess the issue I'm having is.
If there's a question, yeah.
Basically, doesn't causeless mercy interfere with love? Like basically you're saying that Krishna can give causeless mercy to anybody. Love of Godhead basically is, I'm assuming, God causeless mercy. How can that be given? Isn't that something that we have to we have to develop towards him? Because that's what love is, right? Because love is voluntary. How can it be given?
It doesn't interfere, from what I understand. One must have a desire for it. It means association with Krishna. And again, as Prabhu mentioned, part of it is our endeavor, definitely without a doubt. So if we're just idle, it won't happen, of course. However, that's only a portion. There's the 5 factors of an action, Bhagavad that states that. And oftentimes also it's helpful is praying for it. Because again, this praying is a remembering. And it's showing to Krishna that one has a sincere desire to reconnect with him, yoga. And what also His Grace Vishishka Maharaj mentioned is that in order to do the right thing, one must have the option to do the wrong thing. And again, Krishna doesn't want that we do the wrong thing. Out of love, it's love. They say tough love. It's the same thing. Srila Prabhupada would often give the example that it was his own son. Okay, he wants to touch the fan. It's oscillating. Don't touch it, my dear son. It'll hurt you. It'll pain you. But yet the son is very adamant that he wants to touch the fan. Therefore, he touches it. They will once burned, twice shy is the saying. The thing is, this burnt and shyness, one doesn't know exactly how long it's been going on. We have in general, we have a narrow vision of cause and effect. There can be one cause, various effects, or multifarious causes and one effect. There are unlimited combination of permutations. Therefore, Krishna states that one should take an analytical study to them.
So I just to confirm, I guess for the dog example, I'm assuming that soul probably in the past, as you were saying, did the process to kind of qualify themselves to that soul had that desire to go back to God. They were qualified, and maybe from prior activities that the dog did to get them to that point of being associate of Shivananda Sain, which led to that mercy that he received.
Usually that's the case that we see in the scriptures.
Okay.
But if anyone has actually some reference to that, you share.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you for all this.
So actually, Goloka Prabhu also gives a very good example. Like, just did you choose your parents?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So there are certain things, which are like predestined, and certain things like you're discussing about free will. Like, for example, there are so many, we're talking about cat, dog, and everything. Like let's say, there are so many cats. Some cats are suffering, from diseases. They're on the roadside, and Paris Hilton is also having cats. So how that
Yeah.
So they did some, like karma, because of that we're getting something, right? Like, and also another thing, Hari Prabhu really describes it very well. So we're discussing about going back to God, right? So one is like endeavors, and then along with endeavors, you did mercy. That's what Prabhuji was saying. In Vaishnavism, there's another thing also, like, I don't want to go back to God, right? Please, give mercy to me so that, I take birth again and again, but I'll be always, serving you are serving the Lord and serving his devotees. That also Prabhupada mentioned in some of the purports, but it was to the residents that were there.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
topic. Yeah, appreciate that. It's nice increase. And we're a few minutes over. Anyone else want to share your thing? Thank you so much.
Okay.